Scott Grayson was there yesterday, and he's got his Grayson's Grades posted at 97.3ESPN.com. He joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Scott Grayson, what's happening?
Mike, another Monday. How are you?
Yeah, man. I want to dive right into some grades here because it was an interesting game. Ugly game, 20-16, but they got it done. And running the guys at the top of your list, you gave them an A. I thought Wendell Smallwood was a big factor in that game, had a lot of runs that kept the drives alive.
Yeah, and it was really impressive to me the way that he took on contact and then pushed the pile forward more often than not. And those extra 2 to 3 yards are huge when you're talking about needing 10 to get a first down, and maybe instead of a 2-yard run, it's now a 5-yard run. That's big. It changes the way that Doug Pederson can call the plays, and it really helped, I think, give this team a burst. Now, I kept asking myself, why did Smallwood look better? And I think a large part of that came from when I was talking to him afterwards. And you know, he acknowledged that a lot more reps in practice this week really helped him feel a lot more confident going into the game. And I think that could be said for both the way he and Corey Clement played, that they got a ton of reps this week in practice, and I think the results of that showed.
All right, another guy you gave an A to was Dallas Goedert. He had his best day as a pro, just 3 games, but he really kind of had a coming-out party. And he really added a dimension to the offense because we counted it up, Scott. They only had 7 targets to wide receivers yesterday.
Yeah, it was clearly a tight end, mostly the tight ends that they were targeting in this game between Goedert and Ertz and even, Pederson as well. I mean, they were looking at the tight ends hard. That's what it looked like Pederson was looking for the most with finding holes in that Colts defense. And I think what Goedert did was, I mean, he had a lot of big catches, and not only that, but the yards after the catch to get a first down or to convert on some key plays. And the thing that I didn't even really think about until talking to Zach Ertz afterwards was if Goedert can emerge and become, what they've kind of hoped he would turn into eventually, it allows Ertz to move around on the field, spread out wide, go in the slot, create a lot more mismatches and size advantages for him that could really help this offense out. So keep an eye on Goedert. I think his development, if he can do this more consistently, maybe not quite that kind of a performance, but become a reliable target in key situations, I think you'll see a lot more options and flexibility that they'll have with Zach Ertz down the line later this year.
I'm going to pick out an A that might be a little controversial. Jalen Mills, he's kind of everybody's whipping boy, and he stands out when he makes mistakes because he's out on that island. You gave him an A, though.
Yeah, you know what? I thought I've seen some bad games from Jalen Mills, and I didn't think that was one of them. And I may be in the minority, but I thought that he did a pretty good job with positioning. The one play that he got pass interference on going down at the end was definitely a costly call and something that extended the drive for the Colts. And he's got to be more aware in those situations to not commit that penalty and jump over the back of a receiver. I thought, you take that one out of it. I thought he did do a pretty good job with his timing, with his body position on a lot of the other plays. It did look like they attacked at Mills several times in this game. And I thought overall what impressed me the most was his tackling, too. I mean, he turned some plays in the flat that, maybe could have gone somewhere if he missed those tackles, and he dropped them for a loss or no gain. And, you can't underestimate the importance of those kind of plays throughout the course of the game.
Scott, I remember last week we were talking about Michael Bennett and how he possibly could be a little upset about his role, about his playing time. He came out and said, I don't talk to the media anymore. It's a guy that a lot of people are curious about moving forward. Is he going to be happy? Is he going to be able to produce on the field? You gave him an A yesterday in the game against the Colts. Talk about what you saw from Michael Bennett.
Well, I gave him an A because I really thought he helped set the tone early on, and you can only grade him based on the opportunities he's given. It's not his fault if he's not out on the field more, and I do wonder if he's going to start seeing perhaps a little bit more reps, but that's a crowded defensive line, and there's only so many guys that can play at the same time. Bennett came out, hit quarterback Andrew Luck a couple of times to really help stop 2 possessions in that first quarter, and I thought that was big in terms of trying to set the tone early on with giving the Eagles the ball, giving Carson Wentz the ball, letting the team play with the lead as they did. I thought that was big, particularly early on. And did Bennett's stats jump out you? No, he had 1 tackle and 1 pass defense. He had some quarterback hits that they didn't give him credit for that I thought, needed to be counted. But, you can only grade him based on what he's out there for. And I thought when he was out there, he did a pretty good job. And so, I would like to see Bennett out there a little bit more. But like I said, there's a lot of guys to rotate on that line, and Derek Barnett's really come into his own. And, one name you don't hear a lot about anymore is Timmy Jernigan. What's going to happen when he comes back, if he comes back? And there's some questions about that too. But that defensive line, those guys are rotating. They are fresh, and you see the effects of that, the benefits.
All right, you talk about that loaded defensive line, and you mentioned them. Let's stick right with it. Derek Barnett, who arguably had the biggest play of the game there on that 4th and goal sack of Andrew Luck. What did you see from Barnett, giving him an A grade as well yesterday?
From my vantage point during the game up in the press box, he jumped out at me. And from up there, you see the whole field, you see a lot of things. But his speed and the way he crashed down the line was impressive. The way he was shedding off some blocks. And, look, I really think that play on sacking Andrew Luck there, obviously it was a huge play. It was 4th and goal. If he did not go down, I think that's what you saw out of Luck with the frustration. He had seen his receiver, and if he just held his feet, he was probably going to find him. Barnett admitted after the game he's got to do a better job of getting more of the quarterback, and left that one up to chance a little bit too much and got lucky that he went down. So, it was a great play. He did make the play. He got it done. And overall, Barnett was everywhere. I mean, I was impressed with how frequently we heard his name called, where he was at. He was, like I said, he was in on run stops, had, the 2 quarterback hits, 1.5 sacks. It was certainly a great game for Barnett, and made the big play when they needed it. And again, that seems to be the mantra on that defensive line is whose turn is it going to be this time?
Mm-hmm.
And this game, it was Barnett.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, too? The one play I guess a lot of people have been talking about, you gave Pederson a B, and the one decision he made, to kick the field goal, 55 yards. Now, you were there. The conditions were not ideal, but a lot of people I saw really complaining about giving Elliott the field goal attempt there from 55 and then essentially giving the ball to the Colts at midfield, and they ended up going down and score on that one. A lot of people were saying those points were on Pederson there, but overall, I thought Pederson had a pretty good game.
Yeah, I did too. And look, on a not wet day, I might think that 55-yard field goal is okay to try. I mean, look, Elliott's got the leg. He did have the leg on that kick, but I don't know whether it was the wind or something. That ball took a hard left turn halfway to the goalpost. And had it gone through, nobody's talking about it today. It was a good call. But the way that he plays the analytics game, the way that he goes after some of those 4th downs, and the way they were moving the ball, through that first drive and then at times on some possessions, I really thought they'd go for it there or at least punt it and just at least give your defense the benefit of a longer field to go on. I think, you mentioned it early on, this defense has really allowed this team to win games. They were put in 2 huge holes by turnovers deep in Eagles territory and kept the opponent out of the end zone, which is critical in this league, and it was huge. I did agree with you on what you said about Doug Pederson. I mean, you take that one play out of it, for the most part, I liked the first drive. I liked the script he had. I liked the up-tempo. I wondered why we didn't see maybe more of that with Nick Foles, quite frankly, in the first 2 games. But Wentz loves it. He loves running it. The players love running that as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more of that. But once they got out of that opening script, things kind of came to a little bit of a halt for the offense, and they did adjust and finally go on that long drive. But, I thought the way he handled Carson Wentz and the way he called the game with him as if Wentz never got hurt, I thought that was great. I thought it worked well for the team.
Scott, let's get to the man of the hour then. You mentioned him, 9.5 months, well overdue. Everyone couldn't wait for him to run out of the tunnel and get that first drive going. Carson Wentz drove the team down the field, first chance he got. Overall, I say he looked good. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. Physically, he looked sharp. He was escaping tacklers, doing that vintage spin move that he always does. Gets the team the win in his first game back. You gave Carson Wentz a B. Talk about the B grade you gave him and overall what you saw yesterday.
I was really impressed. I wanted to give him an A, but you cannot turn the ball over deep in your own end of the field. One, he didn't see the linebacker about to jump the route on the interception. That was costly. Do you blame him on the one that the ball kind of slipped out of his hand as he was about to do a pump fake? It was bad weather, but still, you got to take care of the ball and can't give the opponent the ball at the 13-yard line. So those 2 plays were really why I gave him a B instead of an A. But look, for first game back in 9 months, having overcome and rehabbed off of a serious knee injury the way he did, to look the way he did in that game, absolutely impressive. And you know, to me, the big difference between and the dimension that Wentz gives you over Nick Foles, he can extend plays and really make them drag on. And you'd say, yeah, he extended one and it was a 6-yard completion with a roughing the passer on top of it, because these guys get so frustrated and tired of chasing him around, they hit him late. It works. And he, you know, the guy made great plays once again. You saw, in my opinion, you saw the Carson Wentz of old. And his timing may have been just a touch off with a couple of receivers, maybe a little bit late recognizing a throw here. But the way he looked off the safety to set up the wide-open Dallas Goedert touchdown, to me, was just a thing of beauty. And I think that you saw more of what Carson Wentz gives you that Nick Foles doesn't. And the reason why, he's one of those elite quarterbacks in this league, extending plays, forcing that defense to cover longer, as we see with Russell Wilson over and over again, and at times Aaron Rodgers. It's a killer, and he finds those guys eventually, more often than not.
Scott Grayson has his full grades listed right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. They're heading to Nashville coming up next. There's a tricky game coming up on Sunday. This Nashville team, they don't excite you, Scott. It's a great city, by the way, but they are a very similar to this Colts team, but probably less weapons or less big names, but probably a more complete team.
I think they are a lot like the Colts, and here's the one key that you got to keep in mind. This defense does not play as well on the road. So how will they do when they head to Nashville? How will they do on the road in a hostile environment? It's not been something they've done well. Case in point, Tampa.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're right. It's a similar opponent to Indianapolis, but they're going to have to play better defense on the road than they have lately.
Yeah, and the Eagles head down there. We'll have that game for you live on 97.3 ESPN. Scott Grayson's grades always after every Eagles game at 97.3 ESPN.com. Thanks, Scott.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.